Hello, hello, hello. I have good news and bad news. Good news is I got to try out the new killer, the new survivor. I have base opinions and things on them. Good some things like that. Had a fun time. Things were cool. Bad news is the last couple of days, well, 2 days ago, I tried to record playing as the killer. I waited for about an hour and never got a killer game. Yesterday, I finally got my first game, and they basically gen rushed me, so I only had a very limited amount of time to play with the killer. Then I played some games as a survivor, where we essentially just played hide and seek with the killer till she found us and killed us off. It was a very fun game, and I would have loved to shown that to everybody. Because the killer was fairly good using her, and it showed the uses and things like that, and was backing up my statements and things that I made previously before I even played the killer for the first time. So my first blind playthrough, unfortunately, will never see the light of day. And like I said, the first day, I waited for an hour, never got a killer game. Second day, when I played as her, I got gen rushed. It was a very, very quick game, and I was a new killer with one perk, so I mean, you can't really stop them when you don't actually particularly know what's going on. So yeah, that was a very short amount of content that way. And then the Survivor, I stayed in that game for, I think it's 45 minutes until all of us eventually went down. And everything I recorded, for whatever reason, my recording software just recorded a green screen in audio. So none of that will ever see the light of day. And yeah, that brings us to today. I guess I am going to do a couple of creations and go from there. If any of these make the cut, I'll actually just name the stream after them. If not, you'll get another stream named like DBD reviews and whatever else I decide to throw on top. Kill concept, the slasher. That's gonna be... That's a very generic name that they can use for a lot of things. Well, I'm not gonna click on any links, unfortunately, so if you're interested for the slasher, which is a Friday the 13th, for those wondering where F13 is from, here's another Jason slasher style killer that you can come to the forum and see whatever he has to offer. I recently did a Jason Voorhees review, so there you go. I'm not going to click on any links because, well, you never know if somebody's ran something through an IP tracker or something like that, especially when hooking into their Google Docs, and you click on it and next thing you know, they have your IP. Or viruses and trojans and things like that. This is what I've been wanting to see more of. It was more like illusions and sanity things like the Doctor. The doctor provides mild sanity or insanity. And I want to see a killer just really just change up the game. I want survivors to be like running into walls thinking that they're windows if they're new because they don't understand what's going on. I want the world to be changing and warping and doing all other kinds of weird things to them, putting the fear in them. Similar to the doctor, where it looks like the killer's running at them from different angles and then vanishing as they're about to get hit, trying to waste their dead hard. Illusions chasing them, things just absolutely just turning things on their heads. Or, they could just go back in and fix the doctor's thing, having the doctor's hallucinations just standing there. They could update that to make that better. But that's what I personally look forward to when I see things like this. Is power. Is mind games. It looks to be a 3-tiered system. Standing within 10 meters of a survivor, the illusionist can drain his leaving them more vulnerable to his illusions and leaving them insane. Draining survivors fills the mind games meter. Well, I can tell you right there that that's probably going to be changed because the doctor used to passively increase survivors' sanity. Unfortunately, it becomes way, way, way too OP, especially with add-ons and everything. I used to run a doctor build where I would have full map madness going at the same time. So everybody would stay at madness level 3. They would get rid of it. And then, boom, a couple of seconds later, which is basically almost instantaneously, go back up to level 3. They could not do gens because they were constantly going insane and things like that. And they took that away and added in static, was it static discharge or static blast? He added in static blast, which now goes for however long your tear radius goes, but it's still kind of meh when you had that passive madness effect always creeping in on them. So, if you can convince behavior to have a passive while you're standing near survivors meter, I mean, it is within 10 meters, so essentially during a chase, they're going to always be getting tears up. The killer's going to be getting teared up in every single chase and eventually get his power up. No, survivors get tears too. I didn't want to say that early, but it kind of glimpsed down, and I was like, oh yeah, when they get tears up, things happen. But no, I'm supposed to read from top to bottom and act like that don't exist, read through this, and then open that up. But killer-wise, the closer they are to survivors, and the more I guess they use their powers, which should be defined right after I start all of this. We'll get a tiered system, and as they get more tiers, they get more powers. I would recommend writing another tier 1 requirement to build up your mind game meter, just in case. Just in case. Because that was removed from the doctor. Granted, the doctor was, like I said, tear radius wise, and this is only 10 meters. So you're building everything up essentially in chases. At tier 2, which you'll probably get mid-chase, you'll gain the ability to summon and send out a projection of his physical form. So, Crow. this projection comes in contact with the survivor, their grip on reality begins to slip and their location is revealed to the killer and their insanity increases. The projections drain the illusionist's powers, require him to drain more survivors. So, crows. You can't have an alternative killer already for a killer that just came out, son. This will be thrown on the back burner for quite the time. Until the regular killer's thrown away and nobody uses her anymore. Which that'll probably happen within the first month, unless new people start flocking in, like Pinhead. He's rarely used anymore. It was fun. But now there's only that select niche. So basically, at tier 1, you get absolutely nothing. No detriment, no buff, no nothing. At tier 2, you can use the crow's ability, or the artist's ability, the artist's crow ability. And at tier 3, the illusionist gains access to reality warp. After 5 seconds of charging reality warp, the illusionist sends out a map-wide wave, causing all survivors to lose their grip on reality, entering tier 3 of insanity. This fully drains the illusionist, slowing him down for 3 seconds and resetting him to tier 1. Absolutely not. Because in that case, without looking at anything down there to see what happens, effectively being able to put survivors into a tier 3 insanity, just like that, all you have to do is stand near one survivor and chase them until you get to tier 3. Afterwards, boom, that's immediately tier 3 insanity throughout. It isn't defined how long that it takes to build up a meter, but let's assume it takes 10 seconds. During that 10 seconds of chase, all you have to really do is just regularly down a survivor, and you already got a tier off of them. At the time you're following through whatever loop they're going, you get both hits, etc., etc. It'd have been about 10 seconds. 2. Can you drain any type? Is it any survivor that has to be in a healthy state, injured state? Can you get them in a dying state, etc., etc.? Oh, I'm gonna assume you can get them in a standing and injured state, but after they're in a dying state, does the drain stop? Or can you still drain? Like, is it like Michael Myers? Can you only drain a specific amount per survivors? So you have to find multiple survivors. But I mean, in that case, if you have to find 2 to 3 survivors, which would probably be limited to 2 to get to tier 3, you're essentially going to have them at tier 2 anyway. So when you use your snapping ability, why not just make the tier 2 people that you use to drain everything from go up to tier 3, and then the other people go up to tier 1. Or you can do it distance wise to give, you know, people some chances. You know, if you snap, god dang, if you use your ability near a survivor, that survivor will immediately go to tier 3 if he's within X amount of meters or fairly close. Survivors within another set or range get tier 2, and survivors within the farthest range get tier 1, or, you know, a set amount of I want to call it madness, but insanity added, or mind game added, well, insanity, yeah, insanity added to their meter. And it just be a set amount, like you get 75% up close, 50% middle, 25% at the far edge added. Something like that. Well, not exactly that. You know, it's gonna have to be balanced per actual character and survivor and things like that. But setting it at a range as opposed to, oh, I stood near you guys for 30 seconds. Boom, tier 3. But this is just based off reading this. I haven't read that there's any way to counter the insanity or what the insanity does or anything like that. I'm just talking about balancing it tier-wise. There's also a couple of other things that I should mention that I'm not going to because I feel like it's going to be all explained in the future. But let's jump down to survivors. At tier 1, survivors will randomly hear the illusionist whispering to them. At tier 1, I guess my question is, if you hear the illusionist whispers to him, is it a loud whisper? Is it a soft whisper? Like, does it impede with hearing skill checks and things like that? Is it louder than that, but the whispering comes, you know, like intermittent? Or is it just a constant whispering that's sort of low and all of that, just to kind of distract you a little bit, but you can hear everything clearly? Like, does it interfere with, you know, if you're not paying attention, you could miss the heartbeat that comes along when you're in the killer's tear radius? Like, how exactly is it going to be implemented? I know this is just kind of a rough draft for all of that, but that should be defined whether the whispering. Oh, I got something in my eye. Pardon me. It should be defined because it's a concept and you're not a game dev that can tweak everything how you'd like it to be. At tier 2, survivors' perception of reality is affected. While healing, repairing generators, survivors will randomly receive a red skill check. Hitting this skill check will cause the survivors to scream out, revealing their location to the killer. False skill checks get harder to discern from normal skill checks, the closer the survivor is to tier 3. Missing the skill check does not affect the survivor. Why though? You would have a better chance making them have to hit a particular skill check. That gets harder and harder the more insanity they have than having them purposely miss one. I know it's a smart idea going against the nature, but I mean, if it's red, you know. Like back in the day when, if you need an example, when ruin skill checks and things like that popped up. Yeah, you can tell it's a ruin skill check even before, like the first time it pops up. Everybody was so used to it that they just immediately, boom, hit it first try, boom, hit it next try, because you would immediately notice that it's a ruin skill check. So I guess what I'm asking is how are you going to try and hide the fact that it's a red skill check? Because you say skill checks get harder to discern, so it's going to be less and less red. However, it still has to be clearly, you know, defined as red. It can't be like white with a very slight pink tinge over it, or a tinge of pink. Because, you know, color blindness and whatnot aren't going to be able to really tell them apart. And that's going to cause problems. You're going to have to, yeah. Plus, I mean, it's not fair for regular survivors. Having a white skill bar that's slightly dyed pink, and them have to worry about hitting the skill check or not hitting the skill check and doing everything. It's not bad. I just wonder, when you say skill checks get harder, what do you mean by that? Or to discern, what do you mean by that? Only thing I can think of, just right off the top of my head, is making it, instead of red, go pink and less and less and less and less. Running this with Thrill of the Hunt doesn't stack that well either, because survivors are more apt to miss skill checks using Thrill of the Hunt. I also have one last question about that. If I notice that it's a red skill check and I just press the button early and miss the skill check as opposed to not letting it cycle through all the way, am I penalized for that? Because if that's the case, it really makes it weak. If it makes it the where as soon as they notice that it's red or whatever, they can just immediately click. Because then it comes to, what color is the skill check bar? If it's red, I just click through and you got like a very, very small amount of extra force there. Versus it's white, okay, I'll go ahead and send it. Tier 3. Survivors view the world will slowly tilt from side to side. Motion sickness. It's the only thing I gotta say there is motion sickness. Uncompleted gens. Oh, and since there will be motion sickness and tilting side to side, that'll probably be a slider added in to turn that off. Uncompleted gens have a chance to look completed. So, fake gens, essentially. Dull totems appear lit. Fake totems, essentially. Drop pallets will appear raised, and vice versa. And projection of illusionists will intermittently chase the survivors. Friends help us hold on to what was real. Being within 4 meters of another survivor will cause your insanity to decrease. Insanity decreases faster when around more survivors. Is there any other way to decrease insanity besides being near another survivor? It's my question. And does it decrease passively if you're not in chase and not being affected by anything? Is it always constantly decreasing? Because if only going near another survivor decreases that, it's going to be... Well, I mean, I can tell you exactly how things are going to go. Survivors are going to go to gens. They're going to do gens. When somebody goes down and gets hooked, survivors are going to unhook and immediately heal, and that's when they're going to work on dropping their sanity. So even though this is a good rendition of everything, if you make it to where you only can get sanity back by survivors, they're just going to re-up their sanity while they're healing another survivor. Then if they really want to go all the way, they'll then just follow that survivor after healing them, and they'll run together to go to another generator. Till they're both good. Nobody's going to go out of their way to find another survivor. Perks. Misdirection. For the first 60 seconds of a trial, all hex totems will appear dull. If no hex perk is in play, then all totems will appear as hexes instead. Why though? But why? But why? You're losing a perk slot to hide your hex totems at the beginning of a match. I mean, granted, it gets rid of the unfortunate effect of somebody spawning near one of your hex totems, but I mean, that's what Hex Undying and things like that are for. So if you run Hex Undying, instead of running this particular perk, which only has 60 seconds as opposed to Hex Undying, has, well, all match, it makes more sense. Now, if no hex is in play, then all totems will appear as hexes instead. That would be... I mean, it has a lot more uses. But I mean, even if all hexes or all dual totems do appear as hex totems, why not make them appear as hex totems instead and then immediately block them off for the first 60 seconds of draw? Which, I mean, that might be what you were trying to say, but just keeping it simple. Now, definitely make it where all dual totems appear as hex totems and then block them all of them off for the first 60 seconds. If you're not running any hexes. But yeah, misdirection, I mean, it's decent, but Hex Undying's the way to go there. For one, if anybody does approach your totem at the beginning of the game, you can head immediately towards it and generally get there before they break it. So there should be the first place that you head to. And secondly, anybody that comes within the range of a dual totem, especially using the new boon perks and things like that, you can actually see their aura, which if they're stuck there for 10 seconds blessing, you're going to see their aura for a long time as they're blessing. So this perk is kind of the meh perk of the deal. It serves no higher use, but it also doesn't serve any lower use. Because, I mean, why use a perk to block everything when you can just throw another hex in? Haunted Grounds, for example. If you're running Haunted Grounds, and let's see, Ruin's another one, and oh, I don't run hex totems that much. And Devour Hope is a third one. And then, I don't know, Thrill of the Hunt. And you run 4 hex perks. I would rather lose a hex perk itself than to lose that perk slot after 60 seconds. Alakazam. The crowd were always on the edge of their seat awaiting the explosive finale. While performing a repair or healing action, survivors will have a 45% chance for a very difficult skill check to appear. You are walking on a very fine line. Very, very, very fine line there, friend. There are perks that do that, but the balance that behavior has incorporated is the killer has to, or they have to be within the killer's tier radius for those to proc. And you have given a 45% chance for a very difficult skill check to appear. So you're talking like, it's not tremendously difficult. So it's not like the doctor's skill checks and things like that, which are fairly small. It's going to be a decently big skill check that isn't going to really bother many survivors unless you're running something else with it, like Thrill of the Hunt or anything like that. But if it's a 45% chance, let's just break that down You have 80 seconds, and out of that 80 seconds, every tick you have a 45% chance of getting a skill check. I mean, I know there's cooldown. Well, actually, there ain't. That's actually a lie. But there is essentially a cooldown time. Like the skill check has to prime up. You have to go around to wherever the bar is, then you have to click the button. So there is essentially a cooldown between skill checks. But you can trigger them back to back. You can get a skill check as soon as you hit it, another skill check trigger right afterwards. And if you're on every tick, there's a 45% chance for a skill check to occur. You're going to have a lot of skill checks during that 80 seconds. It's not going to be a very happy time. So, I would consider this perk again. Go look at other perks that are similar to it, and I would consider possibly making a couple of adjustments here. Now you don't. Whenever you hook a survivor, you become undetectable for 30 seconds. Hitting a survivor removes the undetectable status effect. That can be removed because, well, making any type of action, well, swinging being the most thing there, will immediately remove you from the undetectable status effect in most cases. And if you hit a survivor, it's an automatic removal. Regardless of what you do, it's already programmed into the game. As soon as you swing, that will be removed from you. Well, I guess that's not necessarily true. It might still work for Pyramid Head. I don't know if his perk after kicking the Jinn removes him from undetectable if he hits somebody. I don't know. Let's just say leave it there. It is a further definition. And if behavior does incorporate it and elects to leave it alone, then, you know, there you go. Rather have too much there than too little. Hooking a survivor and becoming undetectable, though. For 30 seconds, I might add. Might be too long. And the reason I'm going to say that it might be too long is due to the fact that camping exists. Camping as the tactic exists. If you hook a survivor and you go and you say hide behind a wall, generally within the next 30 seconds, because survivors don't use hang time, another survivor is gonna run over. And if there's any walls nearby, when they get close and they're going for the unhook, which if you're a headphone user you can hear them approaching, you can just walk around the corner and then just grab them off the hook. And ladder, rinse, repeat. Unless that survivor's running Kindred, which, I mean, basically means they're new anyway. So, I would either decrease the time so it's usable to some campers and people who like to roam the field. So it's just, you know, a decent time. Like 10 seconds is more than enough time for the killer to get across, or mostly across the map. Most maps to get across the map. 20 seconds, way too much. 30 seconds, you could probably make it all the way to one end to the other end of a huge map without any problems. That's way too much. Nobody needs 30 seconds of not being able to be detected. AKA undetectable means your tear radius and most cases, stain disappear. Same effect that Insidious does, but it makes using Insidious more likely because it's given to you after hooking, as opposed to you happen to stand still and wait. Then, as you immediately move, you immediately come out of Insidious, where this perk allows you to just keep moving regardless. But yeah, 30 seconds is way too much. It might not seem much, because I mean, it is just 30 seconds of, you being undetected, but trust me, being undetected helps. I've been playing a lot of Ghostface, and if I get down a survivor, hook them, and then get pseudo undetectable status, and be able to just completely continue moving in stealth, or legions, they have the ability, especially running barbecue and chili with it, to throw a survivor on a hook, immediately enter feral frenzy if anybody's nearby or anything like that they can get to, and immediately start just running up on people and starting their train. It becomes filthy in that 30 seconds, and a lot can be done. Same with Bubbas and things like that. Imagine a Bubba with no tear radius just coming around the corner, revving up his chainsaw, and then you're gonna get it. You know you're getting it. Yes, it can be avoided by jumping windows and using obstacles to your advantage, but I mean, you no longer have that do coming up on you. It's just, hello, I'm here. He's gonna come around the corner, revving his chainsaw probably, or he's gonna rev the chainsaw from behind the wall, and then use that added speed with cords to chase you down and get you that way. Either or, that can be disgusting. On this killer in particular, the extra 30 seconds actually helps him a lot. You can walk up to the back of a generator and that's being worked on and just stand there. And then after getting his tier 3, can immediately send them all into level 3. If he elected to. Overall, the killer has a nice concept. The idea of trick skill check is great. I mean, it's good letting them know that you like the perk, but you're not adding any feedback. Why is it great? What do you like about it? Tell them what the negatives could be of it. You know? It's great that you pointed something out and didn't just say the entire concept looks good, but I mean, I'm glad you pointed something out, but you need to elaborate on that. They're looking for feedback, not compliments, in most times. I mean, some people create for compliments, but they want feedback. I like the killer. There's some things you could change, like the survivor insanity. It's kind of weak. Same as the killer, as he gets more and more power. It's kind of weak. Especially because this killer doesn't have any type of damage. The only damage this killer can do is basic attack and lunge attack. That's it. So you're going to have to run some sort of speed perk by base with this killer. Or have to be very good at cutting survivor loops and coming upon them, etc., etc. Or you're going to be looking for that Devour of Hope. Which, I mean, they kind of understand that, the misdirection of not letting survivors mess with totems, because this killer's gonna rely heavily on powers and totems and things like that. Or not power, perks. Heavily rely on perks as opposed to anything else for his primary damage. I would definitely buff his powers. And I rarely say that often, that a killer's power needs to be buffed. Usually they're OP. But I mean, at tier 1, his base tier, he has nothing going for them. So he's going to have a slow beginning game regardless. Totems and all of that might be, or yeah, totems might be saved for the first 60 seconds, but that's the least of your concerns. You immediately have to get a move on and try to find a survivor and get the tier 2 as quick as possible. From tier 2 to tier 3 is going to have to take a significant amount of time because you're putting all survivors into tier 3. What I would do is I would change this and add an add-on that you can run that all survivors enter tier 3 insanity, like Michael Myers' add-ons that equal that end or leave him in tier 3 for a long time, if not all game. Have an add-on and have it make a bigger increase to make it put all survivors in tier 3, as opposed to doing that by base, or you're going to have this very long build up where in tier 1 you're not even, you can't do anything. You're essentially a useless killer at tier 1. You don't even get the undetectable status or anything like that to help you sneak up on people. As you're moving around and all of that, they're going to hear your terror radius, which is probably going to be 32 meters because it's no type of flying or any style of that killer. Then you finally get to tier 2, and you're essentially just a new killer, the artist that came out. So you're at her base power level, and you're at your tier 2, your mid power level. That's why this needs to be buffed. Then you eventually get the tier 3, and you're immediately, bam, sending survivors into their tier 3 state. Which at tier 1, all they hear is whispers. If it doesn't do anything, then it's just an effect. Essentially does nothing to them. Things don't really start happening until tier 2. So you have to get every survivor to tier 2, but by the time you're getting things to tier 2, you're going to have them on tier 3, because you have that snapping effect just to get them there. If anything, combine 1 and 2, and make those tier 1. Take tier 3, make those tier 2, and then evolve tier 3 into being something, you know, that you have to work for. But 1, take out the, you know, the instant snap to tier 3 that you get, or that survivors get. With that, change that to something else, unless an add-on is ran. But tier 3 survivors should be, you know, should be hit hard. The illusionist power, once a survivor gets to tier 3, should hit hard. Because if not, tier 1's manageable, tier 2's manageable. You really don't get any type of negative things till tier 3. I mean, man, if I hit the false skill check, only thing I'm going to do is scream and reveal my location to the killer. which I'm assuming is just during the scream, like the doctor's scream, that little bit of time. Oh well, if I do that, I now know I need to hide until the killer either comes checks or I know that it's clear. It's not that much of a penalty. And so you're all reliant upon tier 3. And by being relied upon tier 3, that's why you had to enter or add something to immediately put all survivors into a tier 3 form. But instead of bum rushing tier 3 and doing things like that, consolidate these down to that being 1, this being 2. So when they first start out, they get the tier 1. They get skill checks affected. So now at tier 1, if you're doing, being brand new and people don't know, you're going to have people screaming left and right. In the future, once people get used to it, they're going to know the trick and they're rarely going to get hit by these skill checks. Unless you've got like Thrill of the Hunt or something or anything that messes with skill checks. It's not that powerful. That can be tier 1. Then tier 2, palettes and gens and everything else start to appear different. Then things start picking up. It's not any type of detriment towards the survivor. The only thing they have is the looks of everything is going to be different. And generally, if drop palettes appear to be raised and things like that, the way they incorporate it behavior-wise is they make the palettes look backwards. So if you look at them, you can discern that, it's a fake palette or something like that. The palettes actually do look different from a fake palette to a real palette. You just have to pay attention. The survivor view tilting from side to side, that's a motion sickness thing waiting to happen. Unfortunately, you could put a filter over it like they do with Freddy's and stuff like that, or the Doctor, but I wouldn't recommend moving the actual screen from side to side. You'll have people that when your killer first start, they'll just immediately rage quit the match because they don't want to feel motion sickness. So that'll probably have to be removed. Or like I said, a motion slider will be added to disable that. The uncompleted gens have a chance to look completed. Instead of that, I would leave it to where gens that have no progress or something like that will look more completed. So to try to get a survivor to try to stay and run the generators they think that are almost done and try to complete them. Things like that to kind of use misdirection. But I wouldn't use necessarily uncompleted gens look essentially completed, because completion is an effect that survivors rely on. It's their only source of information to know how many gens are being done. And if completed gens or uncompleted gens look completed, the gen counter is not going to reflect that. So I would in turn just make gens that haven't had any time worked on look essentially almost done, and then gens that are close to completion, you could possibly vice versa that and make them look like they've barely been worked on. Or a mix. Everything looks different than what it is. But I wouldn't mess with a already completed gen. Or I wouldn't make any uncompleted gens look like a completed gen, if that makes any sense. I said it backwards. Dull totems appearing lit, that's completely fine. That actually stacks with the new killer's perk. So they'll break more dull totems, enabling her to move things stronger. Or to her to be stronger. Drop pallets raised, all that other stuff. Illusions will intimately chase the survivor. Things like that are completely fine for a tier 2. I mean, even doctor-wise, you start seeing hallucinations and things like that at base 2 madness. And then base 3 madness just prevents you from doing most actions until you recover. And everything hits every effect, depending on what you're running. It gets very wacky. So yeah, definitely these two, tier 1, make this tier 2, and then think of a tier 3. You need your killer to have some sort of boosted power if he's going to rely on just straight perks. Make his power, relevant for other people to use. Because what you have essentially now is an illusionist, but you're also just a basic attack and lunge attack. I'm actually going to leave a short comment. I would combine survivor tiers 1 and 2 together and make tier 3 number 2 and think of a harder hitting third tier. Also, go back there. Currently, over this. Hello. Oh boy. Tsunami, so that's tsunami, and then X, or is it tsunami 9? How are you? Well, it's good afternoon now, my time. So good morning, afternoon, evening, however it's going. $11. Oh my, I can't spell. Want to stop by. Let's say first 50 minutes. It's 53 minutes. And with this, I will leave this particular thing here. That's the Illusionist by the Big Cheese. Probably should call him out. It's his thing, the Big Cheese. Submitted that yesterday. I love the concept. Friday the 13th concept that unfortunately I'm not going to click on because I don't want any viruses or anything, is by that one demo player. Shadows of Bloodshed. Experience the continuation of the Yamioka bloodline within the realm of the entity. Like I said, eventually, unfortunately, my dual monitor system doesn't work on Windows 11. For anybody who does stop by, I actually have to manually switch back and forth between chat and things like that, which I do occasionally, especially if I'm looking for a second or third opinion. I'll generally go over something, then click on chat and see what's popping there. My second monitor, which is beside me, doesn't hook up to my computers on Windows 11, so I can't slide my chat over to my second monitor and look at chat while I'm going over everything. So I'm going to be a little slow when it comes to chat reading and things like that. until I get, a bigger audience, then I guess I could, in theory. Well, no, actually, I can't. Well, not at the moment. What I might do, since most things they have a little gap on the sides, I might minimize this down, drag chat over, and then make this program always remain on top. So, chat always pops up. I might do that later on. I'm gonna do a quick sound check, make sure everything's decent, since most things wonderful. And let's continue on. Oh, they want to add a new map. The training center of the Yamaoka State. Yamaoka. Rinjiro train more than just samurai within this dojo's once opulent and prestigious walls. Now the crumbling ruins are the scene of history's cruelest slaughter, and many more souls will join them. Interesting. I've never been to a dojo personally, but aren't most dojos not big, like Dead by Daylight map big? I'm not 100% sure, but who knows? Yamaoka Estate is big already. If you're trying to add another area to that particular map, holy. New killer is the Shadow. Wonder if he's a ninja. Determined to redeem his family's, Hanzo Yamaoka endeavored to become a shinobi. Yes, sir. I'm gonna skip through all of that. The Shadow's power is... How many times are you gonna make me mispronounce Yamaoka? Yamaoka Shade. Meld into the shadows and move unseen, a creed all shinobi live and die by. Press the power button allows the shadow to partially meld with the dark mist, becoming a shade for 30 seconds. While in shade form, the shadow moves at a much faster rate and can see survivor auras, but cannot see scratch marks or trails of blood while Yamaoka Shade is active. So already here, what do you mean by partially meld with the dark mist? If you're talking about the mist that's just generally on the map, you are going to have a little bit of an issue because the mist doesn't generally sit very high. So you're just going to have a shadowy figure running around. So not completely hidden like Wraith, but he's going to be a little bit harder to see, or just stick out like a sore thumb if he's running along like the new map. If any of you've seen any gameplay on the public test beta, it's a very bright sandy style, like almost like a mausoleum, I guess is what I'd say it is, maybe, type thing. So him running on that map, trying to blend into the fog or any daytime map, he's going to stand out like a sore thumb, but darker maps, he'll be very stealthily. So I'd like to see that to be defined further, to kind of explain what you mean by partially meld in the dark mist. The bottom end here kind of makes no sense. I understand moving faster while in shade form, which lasts for 30 seconds. That's his movement to get around map. However, if he can see survivor auras, why would he even need to see scratch marks or trails of blood? He can see exactly where they are at all times. Generally, you don't want to run anything like that. Because, I mean, heck, we've all played ninja games and things like that. They don't show you exactly where all the people you're trying to get through are until you get within a certain distance of them. Then you generally have a scan or something that happens. What I would do instead is I would use the killer instinct aspect of the game and make it become active when you are within X amount of meters to survivors. Because what you basically have now is the almost the same as Legion, depending on how much faster rate is, which probably needs to define too. Well, it says much faster. So that probably needs to be defined too, as what much faster is as compared to other killers. But I'm essentially thinking you're going to have a Legion, but it's more stealthier. Or a Spirit that is less stealthier. Since it does say scratch marks and trails of blood and all that can't be seen. So I definitely take advantage of the killer instinct. And then keep it to a distance as opposed to just being able to see where everybody is. Especially if you can just cancel this form. It also needs to be a cooldown specified with it, or I'm just going to go into shade, see where everybody is, go out of it, continue to run to wherever they are, go into shade again, and basically use this like a scratch mirrors Myers. Definitely add a cooldown and more information in your powers so people know and can visualize what you're trying to visualize in your head. Because how it sits now, and I am going over everything literally, is it is super OP. Very OP. Too much left to the imaginations. Special attack, Shade Slash. While in shade form, okay. It's not specified that it's shade form. So that's a keyword, shade form. And I kind of wish they would put that up there. But, okay. So shade form. Which honestly, just name the power shade form. Or while in Yamioka's shade, the shadow can launch a deadly strike from the dark mist, emerging from it and slashing the survivor, cutting deep and applying the mangled status effect until healed. So deep wound status effect and mangled status effect. Deep wound status effect being the bar that decreases, that you have to mend yourself. Mangled, which makes healing like 50% less efficient. So this is essentially a legion. A stealthier legion that just runs through the shadows. That hops out, slashing a survivor. And then moving on. Now, if I'm looking at that, literally, it only applies the mangled status effect. Which, I mean, is fine, too. It does no damage. I guess it says deadly strike. If this causes any type of damage, I would recommend making it to where it only does deep wound. Mangled really isn't necessary after applying the deep wound effect, but if you want, I would save this for being an add-on. So there's one free add-on for you right there. And I would just make it apply the deep wound effect. Sort of like Legion. But instead of it being a constant run and then hitting and then chaining, you go into a stealth mode, get crossed, use a leaping slash, and can only hit one survivor. Again, further define this so we can see what you're thinking inside of your mind. Say exactly what it does, put a cooldown on it, things like that, so everybody knows generally what you're trying to bring to the table. And as always, everybody generally adds in a special ability nowadays. Stealth is a shinobi's tool. It is his most powerful one. Pressing the action button near an empty locker. Oh, the interactive button. I gotcha. Allows the shinobi to hide in it, granting it the undetectable status effect until exiting the locker. If a survivor comes within 5 meters of the locker, pressing the attack button causes the shadow to burst out of the locker and slash the survivor, instantly putting them into the dying state. I was with you until that popped out. Yes, it's a ninja. Ninjas are known for making very quick kills and very quick escape using smoke bombs and a lot of things in their arsenal. Very quick kills, things like that. However, doing something like this, especially within 5 meters, no. Just no. Most generators have lockers hiding by them. Most loops have lockers incorporated into them. Most general areas you go to have lockers all over them. And to penalize the survivor for walking up to a generator is just, well, penalizing them that hard. Now, I could see you jumping out of the locker and hitting them for 1 health state, and then getting staggered for a little bit, because, I mean, it is still a hit, and then getting staggered for using a surprise attack. I could see that. But instantly putting survivors into a dying state out of a locker is ridiculous. Because there's some generators you're not going to be able to access without going by a locker or something similar. That's ridiculous. I do like given the ability of the shadow to hide within lockers. It's something new. And instead of pulling things from lockers, they're the ones inside of it. I like that. That works well. It's new. It can be easily programmed to allow the killer to jump into a locker. Easily programmed. And if they don't feel like programming it, you can just end up cursing a locker or adding some sort of ninjutsu to a locker or a talisman or something, and any survivor running by it can get hit. So I mean, there's 2 ways to incorporate that. You can make it to where you're stuck in there sitting, or you can make it to where you set a shadow in a locker as sort of a trap that springs when somebody walks by. As always, if it's a trap, it's going to have to be able to be countered. That's why I said like a talisman or something. So if they see it, they know not to go near it. But if they're not paying attention and looping, you can still get that hit on them. If you are going to get inside of the locker, though, you have to keep in mind that killers can't see through locker doors. So you're going to be relying upon your killer instinct, if not something else, to actually pull the trigger. So I mean, like, it's going to be very hard to do, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You're going to have your button just lying in wait, and as soon as you hear like a killing instinct activate, you're going to have to activate it immediately. And since it's only 5 meters in that aspect, any survivor running by, you only have a very split second to actually get them, because they're probably going to cut the corner and not run directly across the generator. So it is going to be very difficult to get, but I don't think it should put you in the dying state for getting that. Because, I mean, just think of how disgusting Kill Shack would be if you hook somebody basement and then hid inside of the locker. Just doing that is OP. Then being able to get a survivor who ain't paying attention, who comes for the save, bam! Disgusting. I would also further define to make sure that you say 5 meters. Is it 5 meters in a circle? Because if the locker's sitting up against the wall, is it just a 5 meter bubble? Is it a angle? Like, how exactly does that work? Alright, Gallant Newman. I appreciate you stopping by and saying hello. Monday. It's Thursday now, so you're gonna be there for a while. Have fun, man. Appreciate you stopping by as always. Also, my password's saved to my Google, so yeah, if I ever lose that, I probably won't be streaming anymore for a long, long time. Shadow has 3 perks. No escape is the first perk. When one survivor remains, the killer can see the hatch ore within 32 meters. Upon closing the hatch, the ore of the last survivor is revealed to you for 4 seconds. Come on, man. You can't get a barbecue and chili activation off of the hatch as well. The whole point of the hatch being added to the game is to be I don't want to say a failsafe, a way to, well, one, speed up the game, and two, give the survivor, or the last survivor, a second chance, almost to escape. You don't have to get the 4 kill, or the 4 piece, to rank up no more, because it's all based off of how you do and the emblems that you get throughout the game. You don't need to get the 4 pieces anymore. So I would definitely remove the upon closing the hatch. I don't know why anybody would particularly run this part, because anybody running the ninja, especially PTB or anything like that, they're just going to wait at an exit door and wait for you to hit hatch because, well, you have that huge advantage on them. But I don't know why I would run something that finds hatch when I can run another perk, which is a lot stronger in place of that. I don't think you being able to see the hatch and closing it should allow you to see where the other survivor is, because if they're heading towards an exit door doing anything like that, and sometimes hatch spawns right near the exit door, which is weird, you're essentially giving them no chance to escape. Like, absolutely none. No actual fair chances. Shinigami, second perk. After sacrificing a survivor, Shinigami activates and gains a token up to a maximum of 3. I mean, there's only 4 survivors, and you can only sacrifice 3 without game ending, so cool. For each token held, gain a small haste effect up to a maximum of 5%. When the last survivor is down, unlocks the ability to kill them by your own hand. Here we go again with adding in mini Moris. Stop adding in mini Moris. Stop. Stop adding in mini Moris. Stop adding in mini Moris. Last time, stop adding in mini Moris. If that person has a decisive strike or power struggle or some way that they could possibly escape, or they've pulled a pretty good play or anything of that nature, and it'll put you in a position to where you don't have to use the last hook. You can be possibly nullifying their in-game skills. Or if there's a group of 4 or 3 or 2 and you have one down and you're pseudo camping them, or you slap a survivor down if they're at the exit gate, instead of giving them that chance to escape, they're instantly moried. Then you can just get back up after the mori, or mini moried, and then continue to guard the gate that everybody else is trying to come through, as opposed to slugging them and then getting the chance of, do I immediately pick up and take the kill, or do I go patrolling for more survivors? It gets rid of that end-game aspect. You are already getting a 5% haste, which is around the NOAD speed boost. If you mix NOAD and both of these together, that's 9-10% speed boost that you're gonna have at the end of the game. That is very disgusting. 10% speed boost is 0.46 added, so you're going to be living at a little bit over 5 meters per second killer-wise. That is a disgusting move speed. Survivors move 4, you'd be moving 5. Please remove the mini Moris. Every single killer concept has the mini Mori as part of it. Rancor exists for a reason, and it relies upon you keeping your obsession alive till last. Rancor is a good and balanced perk, because if you run across your obsession, you can damage them, do whatever, but if you elect to take them down and get the hook, on top of that, you're losing points on that perk. Well, not if you land to knock them down and sacrifice them, you're essentially losing that perk. Let me be more straightforward. Another thing is, why add and stack in all of these good effects? The small haste effect, which is actually a large haste effect, if you look at NOAD and sprint burst and things like this, this is not small, this is fairly large, and it never goes away after every sacrifice. Please get rid of the mini Moris. Again, please get rid of the mini Moris. One last time, please get rid of the mini Moris. You don't need them. If you have 3 sacrifices, you don't need the ability to Mori the last survivor. This then stacks with my assessments of the last one. You can find hatch. When you find the hatch, the last survivor is revealed for 4 seconds. You have haste out the wazoo, and then you can immediately Mori them. So being the last survivor essentially means nothing. You're going to get Moried every game. There's essentially no escape. You either jump hatch, luckily, find hatch, luckily, before the killer finds that, or you're dead. There's no more exit gates that you can escape from, or anything like that. Unless you're extremely, extremely lucky with spawns. Dark Pact. You possessed an intrinsic bond with the entity that you unconsciously tap into. Once a generator has been 50% repaired, immediately call upon the entity to block that generator for 50 seconds. Survivors working on the generator scream, revealing their location to the killer, suffer from the oblivious status effect for 15 seconds. Dark Pack has a cooldown of 30 seconds. Are you... Why do you have to make everything super OP? I'm not understanding what you're going for with this killer. Like, you started off well, and then you just keep adding in effects that get stronger and stronger and stronger. So, for instance, one of the ways that I talk about gen rushing or playing efficiently, at the start of the game, all 4 survivors should go to different generators. As soon as somebody starts getting in a chase, they should last in a chase long enough to where as soon as they're getting hooked, 3 generators should pop. Not at the same time, but 3 generators should pop in the time before, they get hooked or shortly after. One person, who generally is the closest, then goes for the unhook. The other 2 shift over to other generators. That provides a lot of pressure on the killer, things like that. If they're a camping killer, it'll absolutely destroy them. If they're a gen patrolling killer, and actually, keeping movement up, then what's generally going to happen is, once the 3 gens get repaired, he's going to be on or hooked, and then he's going to go after another person. So one person's going to be in chase, one person's going to go and get the safe, and one person's going to work on gen, so you're only getting 1 gen's worth of progress there. Or the killer's going to do a 360 and turn around, because most survivors running a straight line straight for the hook, and he's going to go back and contend with those 2, generally either getting a trade or downing the other person before they can do anything. That's a change of tactics depending on killer. Camping's a good strategy. Now you have 2 people down. Yes, you only have 2 gens left, but now you have 2 people down and on hooks. You can then go and patrol to interfere with one of the other survivors, or you can just camp and let the one guy's going to bleed out after 60 seconds and he's going to be gone. The other guy will be in his second phase, which then you can move. And if they are working on other generators, they'll have essentially a little over 20 seconds left, and you can continue the pressure that way as a killer and post-survivor. This, every time a generator becomes 50% repaired, your generator's being blocked by 50 seconds. So you're extending the game, which is 80 seconds times 5 generators. That's 400 seconds to an extra to 600 plus seconds. Because every generator, that's what it's going to work on. Yes, it has a cooldown of 30 seconds. So if the gen strat that I'm talking about earlier comes into effect, yes. But the thing is, all of this killer needs to do is just walk by a gen and force a survivor off of it. One of those 3 gens, or 4 gens in this case, if all 4 people are actually working on it, as I mentioned in previous streams, Dead by Daylight always spawns 2 survivors by each other to try to prevent you from gen rushing, and to make you slow down and have to actually run across the map to find another gen, and or 3 gen yourself. So generally, 2 people are going to spawn together and work on 1 gen. 1 person's going to work on another gen, and 1 person's going to be getting chased, realistically speaking. So when that one person goes down, 2 generators are going to pop and it allows the extension of the game. Well, if you chase the person and all of that, and you do hook him and all of that, 1 generator is going to be blocked for 50 seconds. 1 generator is going to be done, and if you're lucky, and it stops the, it's going to stop the generator with 2 people on it, because they're going to immediately jump on that. So their progress on that gen is going to be blocked. The other survivor, the one that's working on the other generator, is going to continue the work, and those 2 are going to have to, well, one's probably going to go for an unhook, one's probably going to go for another gen. Now, anybody who believes that the game is survivor-sided is going to be like, yeah, I don't see the issue with that. People that are more, well, the game's killer-sided are going to be like, well, that's BS. Well, the thing is, it really is BS. It has nothing to do with what side you're on. The ability to block every single generator for a large amount of 50 seconds, they only take 80 to get done. Then on top of that, Ruin's probably going to be ran with this. In those 50 seconds, you're going to go to another generator and work on it, and other generators are going to be done. Till that one's procced, then you're going to have to find another generator to work on. And as soon as that generator procs, or somebody else's generator procs, they're going to have to find another generator. While they're not on the generators, if they don't immediately go back as soon as the 50 seconds is over, which in turn, leaving whatever generator they were working on, Ruin's going to start taking effect. And completely slapping the generator that they left before. So now it becomes the effect of playing basically whack-a-mole on different generators throughout the map. Because you're not going to be able to complete most of these gens unless everybody jumps on and within 30 seconds of each other and keeps cycling and things like that. This is why this perk is way too OP. Now, let me bring other things to your attention if you still think things are cool. Ghostface. Whenever you pick a survivor up in dying state, he blocks all generators that are not currently being repaired for 16 seconds. If you're in process of playing whack-a-mole between generators, and Ghostface's perk activates, not only are you losing the progress due to Ruin, you're losing the 50 seconds already being blocked, you're losing even more time on the rest of the generators. If you're already repairing something, cool. Ghostface knows exactly where you're at and he's coming for them cheeks. 2, if you're in process of running from one generator to another generator, by the time you get there, they're going to be blocked for 16 seconds or whatever left after you ran, locking you off for even more time. And there's a lot of other perks that you can run alongside that. So now survivors are going to have to contend with, after the generators get blocked and a whole bunch of other things of that nature, they're going to have to find the hex totem for Ruin and things like that. And it gives them a whole bunch of other, I don't want to say side objectives, but objectives that they're probably going to have to do. Somebody's going to have to find the Ruin hex totem and work on it. But if you're running Hex Undying and things like that, and Ruin and Ghostface perk, and even Haunted Grounds, because you know they're going to have to look for it, you can just get this disgusting build that keeps survivors from working on gens efficiently. Or if you mix in Thetanophobia, which really makes doing gens a slog with Ruin and Ghostface's perk. You have this gen stall that you can do for a extremely long amount of time. I mean, to the point to where people are just gonna start rage quitting when they see this belt. um, Scream, an oblivious status effect, all of this don't even need to be there. It really doesn't. Because on top of all of that, if you're on an affected generator, you're gonna scream. But I mean, why does the killer feel the need to go over to a generator that's already blocked itself? Yeah, I see that you're over there. Okay, cool. I mean, it'll give me a little information on where you're gonna go next. You're generally gonna go next to the closest generator. Cool. But why should I care? Because the generator you were working on that had the highest amount of progress is doesn't matter. Then you have the brand new perk that the artist has when you hook people and all of that. It blocks generator time. I think it's after the first token, so after the first or fourth hook, you then can block things like that. It's fairly weak compared to the rest that you have offered to you, but you can run that too, with or instead of another perk. So you can have this huge, just effective, just gen blocking perk set nobody can do. And I'm going to throw everything that makes all of this blend together very nicely. Everything that I mention was just for this particular killer. Now picture something like Legion or Bubba or something like that, who can be even further enhanced by this. If you're a speed killer like Legion, this is your jam. If you're a one-hit downer like Bubba, this is your jam. The generators are blocking themselves. You don't have to worry about gens anymore. And you can down people fast enough and efficient enough to just absolutely train wreck and run through lobbies without much of a problem. Now, let's hop on down into Survivors. Roadblock. Just because you're being rushed doesn't mean you leave anything half done. Or something half done. In vaulting a window while in a chase, Roadblock blocks that window off, preventing the killer from vaulting it. Roadblock lasts for 12 seconds and can only be used one window at a time. I mean, me personally, I don't vault windows unless I absolutely have to. Like, if it's inside the Huntress's cabin and you get that one window spawn where you hop that window and the killer has to walk through a room, outside, and all the way around to get back and chase with you, I will hop that window. In cases like that, those are the only times I hop windows. If not, I either break the breakable door or I just walk around and continue chase. So for me personally, that's not gonna affect me as a killer. Those of you that do the kill shack jukes where you jump through the windows and things like that, as opposed to doing the stain jukes, that'll affect you greatly. However, there really isn't any point for a survivor to block a window, because the only person you're really affecting is Legion. Legion's made to be fast and agile and things like that. All the other killers take so goddamn long to walk through windows. It's like, oh my god, dude. So even if you do cut somebody's loop off, you're still basically maintaining the same amount of speed unless they don't pay attention. whatever. At the end of the day, I don't think that survivors should be able to block killers off from windows and things like that. If anything, run lithe. You can get a speed boost after jumping out or jumping over a window. Especially not for the entirety of 12 seconds. The only way I see this viable is if it completely blocks off window use. Completely. For everybody. Nobody can use it. You can't use it. Killer can't use it. Other survivors can't use it for that amount of time. Because what's going to happen is anybody running kill shack, they're going to get one window use and immediately have to either leave or immediately have to drop God Pallet. The one case that I could see the use of it, like in the Huntress and Shack and things like that, it's going to be a drag when it's used there, which is going to be super OP, but I mean, survivors can no longer use that window, so once they hop through, they can't wait and then hop back through again, like a lot of people generally do, and continue on what they were doing. So if you are going to make it to 12 seconds, make sure nobody can use it. Instead of just preventing the killer from vaulting it, prevent everybody from vaulting it. Jockey. When you perform the sabotage action on a hook, you gain the endurance status effect, 25 seconds. Sabotage hooks take an additional 25 seconds to respawn. No. You're taking Jake Park's perk, and you're just basically taking away the ability to see all the extra hooks and adding in another effect. No. Absolutely not. You're also getting rid of an add-on that's barely used unless you have a sabotage build or toolbox with you. So no. And most people only use sabotage hook perks when it's a challenge. So no. Getting a free add-on to essentially Jake Park's perk, because you could just be running a saboteur and then run jockey and literally be able to just run in, undo a hook, and it immediately take, well, I think Jake's part makes the hook take longer to spawn anyway, right? Don't it take like 15 seconds or something like that to spawn anyway? 15, 30, I don't know. It takes a decent amount of time to spawn. So the low end of that would be where Jake's ends. Hook's taking an additional 25 seconds to spawn. You're taking it from 15 to essentially 40 seconds. Or 10 seconds to essentially 35 seconds. Plus, depending on the perks and things that you're using. And then, when you perform, so as soon as you sabotage a hook, you get the endurance status effect. What's stopping me, because you don't specify a cooldown or anything like that, so what's stopping me from being mid-chase and having a very good toolbox or a perk that takes, you know, like, oh, say 2.5 seconds Jake Parks is, or you can even faster with a better toolbox. Using that toolbox to take out the hook that I'm nearby to, using that endurance effect, taking the hit and running over to the second hook that's closest to me and taking that hook out, and then just running in between them and going down. In most cases, if you take out the two nearest hooks, you can actually escape before anything happens. Or just be in a chase in general, drop a pallet, immediately sabotage a hook. Then as the killer gets through, you'll have that extra endurance effect to get to another loop, to get whatever you need to get done. Or you hop a window and then go to a hook and do that. Or anything of that sort. 25 seconds is way too long. And I understand where you're coming from, but if you're putting yourself out there to sabotage a hook that the killer's walking to, and you in turn take damage for doing that, that's your own fault. You shouldn't be protected from that. That's your fault. You elected to sabotage a hook and put yourself in danger. Like when you're body blocking killer when they're carrying somebody and you get hit. That's your own fault. You shouldn't have a health state saved for doing something like that. And also the obvious, hooks taking an additional 25 seconds to spawn. Have you ever seen the perk where when you're taken off of a hook or if you escape on your own, hooks are deactivated for a long time? An extremely long time. That particular perk being ran with this particular perk is absolutely disgusting. So you're running a nice toolbox with that add-on that adds however many seconds, either like 15 or 30. It might be 30. If it is 30, then you're looking at almost a minute on top of that, plus the perk that deactivates hooked for a long time. You can essentially just go hook hunting. Anybody being chased by a killer or looping somebody, all you have to do is go over and deactivate the hooks and then continue upon their day. And you have essentially a minute on top of that. So when they do go down, the killer picks them up and they're like, my hooks though. Killer then can't reach in time, which is then he's just gonna drop them on the floor and continue doing what he's doing until the hooks either respawn or that person crawls to a position where they can be hooked or somebody goes and saves them. Having this particular perk mixed in with one of the new survivors who has that exponential, I think is the new perk, which allows you to infinitely recover from the dying status or dying state at 90% efficiency, which I think I worked it out. That means it's going to take like 18 seconds or something like that. I don't remember the exact numbers to recover. It's 90% speed. Having that on top of, well, the killer not being able to hook anything, and if you're running decisive or anything like that, makes for a very frustrating game. If this was made without you playing the public test beta, I do encourage you to jump in and play the public test beta. If you played the public test beta and then made this, then I don't know what to tell you. Let there be light. While survivor's name's Samantha, by the way. When repairing a generator with a toolbox, you'll repair generators 25% faster and your toolbox consumption is reduced by 40%. If you install a brand new part, Let There Be Light prevents it from being used if both skill checks are missed. Delete that. You were basically holding the hands of survivors who are either new or can't hit skill checks. If you miss your skill checks, that's it, partner. It's gone. If you miss both skill checks, you don't deserve the brand new part anyway. That's 2 skill checks that you've missed in a row. And get rid of that. Secondly, I want you to just take the time and go watch the meme builds that people have. using Built to Last and Streetwise and things like that. Not only is generator repair speed faster, because I think the Commodious toolbox has like a 50% faster repair speed. This is going to have a 25% faster repair speed. That's 75%. Then there's add-ons to even further increase your repair speed. So you're going to be looking at the upwards of close to a 100% increase in repair speed. Then you add on perks and things like that that will further increase it. You could probably go well over 100% gen repair speed. So something that should take you, well, let's say you get 1 tick. The Commodious toolbox gives you 32%. You will get to that 32% so fast. So fast. Now keep in mind, we're talking about, well, no, because consumption is reduced by 40%. So Streetwise is what, 33% consumption rate reduced? Plus 40%, that's a 77% consumption rate. So you are looking at 77% of 32. You are essentially getting an extra 20 or so charges. Essentially. An extra 20 charges. So you're going to get to 50% or 50%, 50 seconds worth of completed gen time in a snap. So you're going to have 100%, so it's going to take you around 25 seconds, maybe 28 after all said and done, to get to 50 ticks on a generator. Which, I mean, you're saving essentially 20 you're saving 20 ticks throughout all of that on the generator. Well, 25. You're saving 25 ticks on the generator throughout all of this efficiency increased and everything being reduced. And for some of you are saying, well, how are you only saving 20 to 25 ticks? Possibly even 30. Like, I don't know the upwards end and I don't really want to do the math. So let's say 30. You're saving 30 ticks. 20 to 30 ticks. So like 30-40%. For users that don't understand percentages, if the toolbox you're using has a 1000% repair speed but only has 32 charges in it, you're going to get to that 32 charges 1000% faster, but you're never going to get above 32 charges because that's all it has. If all it has is 32 charges, you'll never get over 32 charges. And the time that it takes to get to 32 charges is subtracted from that. So if you have a regular toolbox with no add-ons or anything like that, let's say it has 0%, it's essentially regular repair speed. It's going to take 32 seconds to get to that 32%. So I guess I should have just said a regular survivor. It's going to take 32 seconds to get to 32 ticks. And there's 80 ticks in a generator, or 80 seconds. I could use seconds to make it simpler. It's going to take 32 seconds to get the 32 ticks. Essentially, you're getting 0% efficiency because it's 0 to 0. Add in the Commodious toolbox that gives you a 50% repair speed. So in essence, it should take you 16 seconds. Because you're getting there. Actually, it's probably not even 16 seconds. It's actually way less. I might need to actually do the math on that. But you're essentially moving at 1.5 times the speed. So whatever 32 times the 1.5 and all of that will give you whatever number that is. Brain hurt. I don't know. I can't do it off the top of my head. But you're moving at 150% efficiency, but you're also taking time to get to that efficiency. So instead of it taking 32 seconds to get to 32 ticks, it's now going to take you 16 seconds to get through 32 ticks. That's not the exact number, but I'm simplifying it for brains. Since it's taking you 16 seconds to get the 32 ticks, you have to add in that you're still doing a regular 16 seconds there, which is actually more. It's more like 24 seconds, but I'm not going to get into that now. Now that it's taking the 16 seconds to actually get to 32 charges, or 32 seconds, that time is subtracted off. So you're only saving about 16 seconds. In essence, you're only saving like 8 seconds using it, but even if 4. But I don't have the percentage calculator in front of me right now, and my brain hurts to try to think of the math on top of my head. If you want an accurate assessment on everything, you're going to want to look up a percentage calculator or a percentage equation where you can plug in numbers and you can see the difference. What I'm trying to talk about in layman's term, and I guess I'm not doing a good job, is if I am running a 100-meter race and I just run it, let's say it takes me 100 seconds to run an 100-meter race. Now, if I get on a bike and I do the 100-meter race in 75 seconds as opposed to 100 seconds, most people would immediately say, well, the bike is 25% more efficient because you're saving that much time, but that's not necessarily true, because it's still taking time to actually get to the end of the thing. You're not just magically teleporting to the end after what did I say, 75 seconds? After the 75 seconds. You're not just running to the 75 seconds and then teleporting the rest of the time. That time that you're saving and the time that you're biking to get to there is changing and is added to the equation. Because of, well, speed, which is the amount or how fast you're doing something, isn't necessarily, actually I guess I shouldn't use the word efficiency, isn't the same as efficiency. So I should have used the word speed, not efficiency there. Which I guess that's my fault, and another bad explanation. How do you explain this without it being just have to be seen on paper? Just give me a minute. I tried to explain this the other day and I don't think I did a good job at it either. So repair speed affects how fast you can get to the set distance or number of charges. Everybody can understand that, because I say, you know, if you have 1,000% repair speed, you're going to get to the 30 charges in like 3 seconds or something like that. But that extended math doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is if you have a high repair speed, you're going to get to only that set number of charges in that time. You will never get any more than 32% or 32 charges or 32 seconds, because that's how much the toolbox has. Just because it's 1,000% repair speed, you're not gonna get random extra charges added to your toolbox. And I hope people understand at least that beginning part. 32 is the limit, no matter how fast you go. It's just how fast you get to the 32. Now, being the 1,000% efficiency at getting to 32 is different than 1,000% speed. If you have 1,000% efficiency, or let's say 1,000% reduced item consumption and things like that, now you are getting more charges because you have reduced item consumption. 1,000% reduced item consumption means, well, at 100%, you're going 1 for 1. So 1,000%, you would be saving 0.1 off of every second. Or if you want to run through in hard percents and go through the other spectrum where 0% is by base and 1,000% is additive on top of that, then you're saving a heck of a lot of item reduction, depending on how you want to send data out. For me, regular item use is 100% efficiency. And if you use Thatanophobia or something like that, you're getting less efficiency, as opposed to 0 being base efficiency and Thatanophobia bringing you into negative efficiency. Because if you try to work with negative percents, you're going to have a rough time. That's why 100% efficiency is just base survivor speed. And if you keep that in mind, that when I say 100% efficiency is base survivor speed, and 1,000% efficiency is 10 times that, it makes the math a lot easier. So base survivor speed, or moving at 100% efficiency, getting a 1,000% item consumption rate reduction. You can then do all the zeros and figure that out, or you can just use a high value and say that you're saving 1 charge per tick. Is that 100% correct? No, but like I said, I'm not going into super hard percentages and things like that. You're actually saving a heck of a lot more. But that's why I set base survivor efficiency so much higher. Because in essence, let's see, 1,000% of 1. Well, of course 100% of 1 is 1. 1,000% of 1 is 10. And I'm doing 1,000% of 100. So you're going to be looking at 100. But in order to prevent confusion and happen to reduce percents down, because I mean in essence you're only going to be using like 0.01 charge per tick is what it's going to come down to. If you really want to know like specifically the actualities of everything, instead of just using my metaphoric example, you're going to be using 0.00 or 0.01% of your toolbox per 1 tick, and that toolbox is going to last forever. Whereas I'm trying to overly simplify it by not actually providing super accurate data, but I'm trying to provide a scenario in which it all makes sense and simplify it. I can throw out and say it's 1,000,000% efficient and still use the same, as you're saving zero point 0.1 tick per one use. It's just a falsified number. It's just thrown out there to show you that there is a large amount of efficiency, and then I bring it back to make it simple by just adding zero point 0.1 to it so brains can understand that there's going to be some efficiency. It's very quick math. So, 10% reduced item consumption rate. We'll go with the actual number and say you're going to be losing 0.1 charge per one. I actually think that's 100, but pish posh. So now you're essentially, well, you're not adding extra charges, but you're using everything with reduced consumption. So you're getting extra time. You're adding time onto the value as opposed to charges. As soon as it hits 32 charges, it's still going to stop. And you're not getting any more than 32 charges. You're just using everything with a reduced consumption. Speed is how fast you get to the 32. Reduced consumption is essentially how slowly you can get to the 32, but it's how efficiently you're using each and every tick to get to the 32. And if you have a high amount of speed and a low amount of consumption rate, you can essentially complete an entire gen, even with 32 charges, because you're efficient at what you do. And when I added in on the middle, now that we've explained reduced consumption rate versus speed, is while you're getting to the specific time, aka 1 second is 1 tick, and there's 32 ticks that we're going off of. If you're 5% faster or something like that, or 1% faster or 10% faster, you're getting 1.1 ticks per second. It still takes time to build up to get to the end, and that time has to be subtracted by the amount of, or at the end of the equation to see how much value you're getting out of it. If not, you get incorrect answers and misunderstandings. If I say that it takes 32 seconds to heal a survivor with self-care, and Circle of Healing gives you, I don't know, let's just lie and say 100, well, I think it is like 100% efficiency, and you complete the healing in 16 seconds. People by base will say that Circle of Healing is 100% times better than self-care, when it's only 50%. And then other people are saying, what? Yes, because 100% times efficiency, or taking 100% speed, is essentially only taking 50% of the charges. So you'll take that 100%, but it takes 50% of the time that's still available to get to that 50% charge or 100% charges. So in turn, once you subtract that, you get a 50% efficiency. And for anybody in the stream that's actually watching, just you can click off. After this, I'm probably done with the stream anyway. I'm just trying to go over a regular concept. And for most people, or for a lot of people, this concept is easy to explain if it's in front of you. Like, if I had a way to draw and show you what I'm talking about, you would understand it completely. But since I'm saying it to you, it's going to drive you up the wall, just straight bonkers. So, I'm going to try to make this slow. Self-care takes 32 seconds, correct? Circle of healing gives you a 100% faster heal rate. Or 100% efficiency. It's the same regardless in this situation. Which gives you a 16-second heal. Actually, no. Let's use the actual things, so I'm not just spitballing. Let's use actual, because I think it's even... because it adds a healing... because Circle of Healing gives you the self-care ability. And then it gives you a secondary thing on top of it. So let me give you actual numbers. Okay. Circuit of Healing unlocks the self-care ability, allowing self-care without a medkit at 50% of the normal healing speed. With a medkit, you can get healed at 16 seconds. At 50% of that, you're looking at a 100% increase to 32 seconds. For those who don't understand what I said, 50% of anything, 50% times 2 equals 100 is the simplest way you can add that. 50% times 2 equals 100. 16 seconds of heal time times 2 equals 32 seconds. Regular healing speeds, 16 seconds. Self-care is 50% of regular heal speed. Since it's going to be half of heal speed, it's going to take 32 seconds. For those of you who are thinking, well, why ain't it 8? Because 50% is only 8 seconds. That's where the percentages are confusing you, and that's why you're not understanding the rest of what I'm saying. So, medkit, 16 seconds. If you was to take 15% of that 16 seconds, because it says half of the normal healing speed, you're actually going positive 50 and adding another 50 positively to it, as opposed to increasing the time. Some are like, huh? Well, think about it. If I said that the base healing speed was 16 seconds and self-care takes 15% longer, and you took that in half and you added it to the end, you would make it 20. But then what if we go even lower and go to 4 seconds and cut that in half? You would take the 2 and add it on the end to create 6. But then what if we cut that in half? Now you have 1 second. 1 second and a half would be 0.5, and you would add it to the end. And the more that you crush that number, the closer the numbers are coming together till they're essentially the same. So it's not actually an increase in benefit at all if you're going 50% off a base number and then added it in. 100% or 150% of a base number, because 100% is the base number, then adding 50% on top of it would be half of that number, and then that number additive onto it. But we are going at a reduction of 50%, not an additive. Positive versus negative. If you go backwards, you're positively adding. If you go farther out, you're negatively adding. You're positively adding because it's going to take less time, while negatively adding, it's going to take a longer time. Since it's saying it's going to require more time to do something, you want to use the negative number or the negative affliction as opposed to positive affliction being less time. And that's probably the simplest way that I can say that. Ignore the bonus to all healing speeds. Ignore all of that right now. The only thing I'm going over is the self-care ability right here. 50% of normal healing speed. 50% worse than normal healing speed. If it was 50% better, then half of 16 would be 8. You would be looking at 8 seconds. But it's 50% worse. So it would be times 2. Those of you that are still sitting there like, huh? Well, let's look at it reverse wise. Let's work backwards like you have to do in math a lot. 32 seconds being the end number. With your logic, if I'm doing a reverse, excuse me, with your logic, if I'm doing this in reverse and I apply the same principle to find what 50% of 50% efficiency of the 32 seconds, I would take whatever that divided by that is, 16 divided by 32 would equal 2, and then I would subtract it. It would only give me 30% and it wouldn't work. Or you could subtract 15%, 16 off of it. But no, I just confused myself. This is a really hard concept to explain to people without having it on paper. I'm using it as a challenge. Nobody needs to sit here and listen to this. Like I said, the stream's basically over. I appreciate everybody stopping by. I'm just openly thinking live on stream, so when I have to explain this to somebody in the future, I'll already have a plan made. And somebody I don't understand percentages, I can come up and say, well, this, that, that, and that, and that, and that. And they'd be like, oh. This is also how, if you ever seen me in other forums of Dead by Daylight and things like that, and I'm in a discussion with somebody, how I am so confident and accurate about the things that I'm saying, because I sit here on things like this that aren't really that important, and I dawdle on them, and I think about them, and I take hours and hours of my time, even though it interferes with other things most of the time, bringing this down. Because, like, I can explain this in all of about 10 seconds if it's on paper. All you have to do is just show the math. As opposed to using 50%, you can just use 0.5. Show the math, and everybody would understand. But using the 50% and things like that, it's extremely hard. Even saying it, and saying, you know, self-care allows you to do everything 0.5 worse than everything else. The only thing that's going to do by saying 0.5 is make them take 16 divided by 0.5 and then try to add that in and equal up to 24 seconds, and it's just going to be an absolute dumb ending to everything. But the thing is, even doing the doing the backwards math that they're doing, they can still come up with the correct answer because of all of this other things. If you take a 50% on top, and you get 8, and then you add the 8 to it, and then you incorporate these into the equations. Most importantly, this, because it benefits from self-healing speed to another 100. You're going to get another 8. And it's going to end up equaling 32 anyway. But backwards math and getting a lucky answer isn't what we want here. We want people to understand, and this is why I'm harping on this so much and basically wasting time. I mean, I can end this stream, but it's already up. So why not have it recorded, my entire thought process, for some people who just don't understand me? And also future references. I can just come back to the end of the stream, pull the last couple of seconds off, and then, you know, edit, post it on the video. It's a completely separate video. Bang. All in one. Alright. Self-care ability allows you to use the self-care action without needing a medkit at 50% of the normal healing speed. Regular healing speed, self-care wise, is 32 seconds. I think everybody gets that. 32 seconds is regular self-care speed. If anything I've been saying, you should know this. So anytime I reference 32 seconds, I'm referencing self-care speed. Anytime I reference 16 seconds, which is half, or 50% of that, I'm referencing medkit speed. Just regular medkit speed. No add-ons, no anything like that. Just base medkit speed. 16 seconds base medkit speed. 32 seconds self-care speed. And then again, I'm only explaining this. I'm going to try to pseudo break this down as much as possible on how medkit speed in the 50% allows this equation to double, as opposed to just taking half and then adding in. Alright, so medkit speed is 16 seconds. The way I think I would accurately explain this is, since medkit speed is 16 seconds, and you have something that's making it something else that's 15% of normal speed, medkit speed is now 50%. It becomes the 50% mark. As stated here, medkit speed 16 seconds, and then self-care is 15% or 50% of normal speed. Medkit speed is 16 seconds. If 16 seconds now becomes 50% of an equation, which is half, by the way, half of something, then normal healing speed is going to be 100%. To get to 50% to 100%, you have to times whatever the medkit is, which is 50% times 2. So 16 times 2 is 32. Solved it and made it simple. So one more time, for all of this thinking and clarification, how to explain this to somebody in words. It start off with medkit speed. Don't even look at this end part of the equation. Medkit speed, define it as 16 seconds. You can heal with the medkit at 16 seconds. Don't worry about self-care speed or any of that. Just tell them you can heal with a medkit at 16 seconds. So 100% of heal speed with a medkit is 16 seconds. Now, the self-care ability allows you to self-care at the speed of a medkit at 50% normal healing speed. Because it's 50% of the normal healing speed, which healing can only be done with a medkit unless you have the perk self-care. So if they're really new to the game, start from the beginning. I'm assuming that everybody knows what the terminology self-care and medkit is. If they're new, you're going to have to go back farther and say that when you are injured in Dead by Daylight, yeah, I'll just do it officially. If you are injured in Dead by Daylight, the only way to heal yourself is to either have a perk or a medkit. A medkit makes you heal yourself faster because you have an actual kit, to heal yourself. It makes sense. It's obvious. It takes 16 seconds. If you have the perk, any perks that allow the self-care ability, you're essentially just patching yourself up with whatever you have. You're not using any medicine or anything like that. So it takes twice as long. Most people, okay, don't throw any percentages out, anything like that. A lot of people would be like, okay, I understand. It's going to take 16 seconds to do that, 32 seconds to do that. Then if you come to this perk and they're not understanding what any of this means, break it down for them first, saying that this unlocks the self-care ability. So it gives people the perk, the self-care, which means it allows them to do the healing at 32 seconds. Or 50% of the normal speed. If they look at you and say, how is that 50% of the normal speed? It don't make sense. Then quote to them that healing, normal healing, in terminology here, is medkit healing, which is the 16 seconds. Normal healing, again, is medkit healing, nothing else. Regular medkit healing, no add-ons, no nothing. 16 seconds. This is at 50% of the normal healing, or medkit healing, speed. So it's going to take longer. If you can agree with that, yes, 15% of normal healing speed means it's going to take longer. Good. Since it's going to take longer, it's going to be a higher number, correct? Good. You come to the understanding. So, if we say normal healing speed is at 100% of healing speed and efficiency, etc., etc. Correct. Since this is the fastest way to heal without any type of additives, this is 100% efficiency, and this is at 100% speed. Correct. Yes. 50% of the speed means it's going to be 50% efficient and also take 50% longer. Correct. Yes. So we're going to set the value, since the medkit is 50% efficient and twice the speed, because it's 50% better, twice the speed. Medkit being 16%, we're going to set that at it being base, or 50% in this case, since self-care is going to take longer. It's going to take longer, it's going to be the higher number. It's 50% longer. So this means if this is going to be 50% longer, this is going to be the longer speed, or the 100% of time, the bigger number. Correct. Yes. If Medkit's set at 50% at 16, then 100% being at normal speed is going to be 32 seconds because it's double. 50% times 2 is 100%. And that's the long drawn out dummy way that you can give an equation to somebody who doesn't really play the game, it's new. If they know what everything is, then you're going to say Medkit takes 16 seconds, self-care takes 32 seconds. Like I stated earlier, in all of this, they know this. And since Medkit is 16 seconds, it's going to be the faster. And self-care is 50% longer, so the Medkit or the self-care is going to be 50% higher than whatever Medkit is. Since we're looking at two things and we're taking 50% of something off of something, healing speed wise, means Medkit's going to be set at 50% because you can only have 100% in this particular aspect. So this is going to be 50%, timesing it by 2. 16 seconds times 2 gives you 100% of self-care speed, or 32 seconds, because self-care takes twice as long or 50% longer than regular Medkit speed. And you can break that down by as much as you need. Now, the thing that makes Circle of Healing extremely nasty is, on top of that, now that you have the 16 seconds and the 32 seconds, everything benefits from the healing speed boost, boosting the self-healing speed to 100%. So now everything is 100% faster. So now we've already established what the base is, the 50% here, versus the end goal being the 100%. Or you can make this the 100% if you're trying to work backwards. Make the Medkit 100% speed, and then adding on, make it 150%. You can say that Medkit's base, it is generally the only way to heal unless you have a perk. So Medkit speed, if you're doing a normal healing speed, is 100%. And normal speed being at 50% of regular speed, or 50% more of regular speed, you can then associate that with 200% of regular normal speed. And work it backwards like that. And when this comes in, it boosts his healing speed to 100%. You're at 50% of normal healing speed. Boosting that to 100% of normal healing speed makes it to where you can use a medkit or self-care at the same amount of time as a medkit, because now it's no longer 50% or half as effective, or not half as effective, twice as ineffective. Now it's 100% as effective as a medkit. So you incorporate this in by saying this essentially makes it to where you can self-care at medkit speed. Then you go back to the following of survivors inside Boon Totem range benefit from the following effects. 100% bonus to all healing speeds. And you add in the top one. So if these two with this are essentially the same, then you go back in and add the other 100% on top of that. You're looking at some ridiculous healing times. You're looking at an upwards of 8 seconds. plus whatever perks and, you know, other things adding in, reducing the time on that being even more and more and more and more. To where you can just almost instantly heal. Like, you can get some very fast heals there. There you go. So you're gonna be looking at a long time. For all of you that are wondering, he got a little over halfway just after 9 seconds. It's gonna take 16 seconds self-caring while inside of this boon to complete the heal. There's your proof. I don't know why they didn't go the entire 16 seconds to give you definite proof, but there's your proof. 8 seconds, well, 9 seconds in, he's a little bit over half. So it's going to take 16 seconds for him without a medkit to heal up completely. Effectively half. When you add in the 100% healing efficiency on top, you know, running extra percentages and things like that with medkits, like I said, you can get that down to like 4 seconds, 8 seconds, things like that with perks and everything else added in, and really get super fast healing speeds. Which is where people are worried about, that people are just going to run circle of healing and medkits all the time. And by the time you damage them, they're just going to drop a pallet and heal up by the time you're able to get back to them. Or you're going to get the bang, heal, Claudette circle and circle of healing, and they're just going to keep picking people up. Also on that aspect, if another survivor is healing you, it's the same as a medkit. It takes 16 seconds. So you can find how much efficiency you get from that by doing everything off of the medkit. The medkit itself is what everything becomes inside of the circle of healing. And then the medkit gets enhanced by 100% of bonus speed, because it's its base. It has to get above 2. Self-care got a boost, which makes it a medkit. Medkit gets a boost, comes over here. Survivor healing you is the same as a medkit, so it's going to get a boost. Both of those are going to be faster than self-caring. So you're going to be looking at an upwards of like 8 seconds with perks, down to 4 seconds. I think it tops out at 4 seconds. There might be a way to push that with the right set of perks and everything like that, but I think the lowest you can get is 4 seconds. I haven't watched any YouTube videos to see how low you can get. There's probably insta heals and things like that that people have really worked down to the bone to find, but I'm stopping at like 4 seconds for a heal. And I think I found a reasonable answer to explain how medkits work now, so I am satisfied. If you stayed here during all of that babble, I congratulate you, and you're probably more confused than you came in. Like I said, this is just kind of bonus content with Q. What does he do in his spare time when he's perplexed? I sit and I think about things. If there's different scenarios and things like that, I continuously go over them. Over and over and over and over and over. Now look at the maths. Because I'm still on stream, I'm not gonna search everything online and go into super high detail things like that. I'd also be writing things down on a separate notepad and things like that. But I'm also streaming, so anybody who does look at this, I have to have some sort of commentary. I can't just sit in silence and be like, like I still have to say things, which uses brain power. And this is kind of just like bonus footage that you don't see. But as always, supplement your lifestyle. And I don't know. I keep trying to get killer footage and survivor footage and things like that and do a review mid game, but every time it just don't work. But tomorrow I'm gonna go over an official analysis. I'm gonna be watching videos and all this other things and gathering information so I can give you the benefits and the detriments for the new perks that the survivor has and the new perks that the killer has and things like that. It's been out long enough to where I can just get information from different people and their play styles and the mistakes and the good and accolades and things like that. And so right now after I get everything else I need to get done for the day, which should generally leave me like an hour or two. Well, let's see, it's 3 o'clock now. I have until 8. That's 5 hours. So it'll give me an hour after I get everything done for the day. I was supposed to be doing a lecture on psychology today. But I don't think... I got 4 hours. So I might be able to do a mini one. That's besides the point.